I want to welcome you all to our private Facebook group event tonight, which is all about student coaching. We're calling it our student coach approach. Because I would say, and I've been doing this for 19 years, that a day does not go by that we don't get comments, requests, questions about coaching. And it doesn't matter what we have on our website. It doesn't matter. We just don't seem to be able to answer it in a way that you all want. And I totally get that. I kind of feel like coaching is the secret that you so want to be a fly on the wall, but you're not invited to. It's just not what you get to be privy to. So I am bringing you tonight two of my absolute favorite people in the world. And some of you know them, some of you've heard them, right? So I'm going to let this is Keith. Obviously, you'll know which one is Keith and which one is Sarah. But they are, I would say at this point, way better coaches than me. Way, way, way better, because they are really in the trenches all day, every day. So here's how this is going to work. We've had a lot of questions that we've gathered from our own coaching practices that we are going to share with you, and I'm going to kind of moderate it. And then we're going to open it up for questions. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is, if you have questions, I'm sorry, I'm trying to watch the screen and watch my phone. In fact, you know what? I better plug in my phone because that would be the last thing. There we go. All right. What I want you all to do, hold on, is if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section. Drop them right in the comment section even now. So as we move on, I might even stop us a little bit, right, guys, and check questions. Okay, is everybody good? Give me a thumbs up. All right, I'm getting some thumbs up. Oh, we have so many people. There's a ton, just not to make you feel crazy. There's a lot of people. Okay, so what we decided to do is kind of do it in order of how we do coaching. So the first thing that we tend to talk about in coaching is, how do we know as coaches if your student is ready? So I'm going to open it up to Sarah first. How do you know? Because we do, just so you all know, we do assessments of your child. They're very user-friendly. Your child doesn't really know they're being assessed. It's very conversational, but we are looking for certain things that allow us to know absolutely if your child is a right candidate for coaching. So I'm going to let Sarah go first. Sarah, what do you think? Like, what's your aha moment?
So I always phrase the assessment call as like an in-depth conversation with the student. And it's really for me to understand if they're really open to making changes and thinking about better ways to do things. And so throughout that conversation, that's really what I'm looking for. It really has nothing to do with like where they are in school or where their grades are, anything like that. It's really their openness to make changes. And yeah, that's pretty much.
I love that. I like the phrase making changes. And I'm going to actually, well, Keith, your turn. Tell me what you're looking for.
Well, I mean, certainly exactly what Sarah does, but also I like to also make it collaborative. So I try not to get involved with the academics, but more just, hey, what do you want to get out of this? Because I feel like if the kids are engaged and they're part of the plan, they're going to be much more apt to be open to the strategies. And I think the biggest thing for me is I talk to them about feedback and, making sure they understand, like, I'm going to give you feedback. I may not love everything I'm going to say, but I'm doing it from a loving place and it's to help. And I think, if they're okay with that, that's really, for me, the big thing is that I can tell them what I need to tell them, offer the strategy, offer the feedback, and know that they're going to be okay with it.
I find that fascinating, because when I do an assessment for a student, I never talk to them about ever. And see, this is also, I want everyone to hear, we're being super honest and we all come to the table with different approaches. So I don't do that. And I really now feel like that's something I should incorporate into is what is their willingness to hear feedback. So what I actually do, and this is probably more related to parents, is I ask them first what they understand about coaching. I want them to tell me in their words, what is it they know about what I do? Because I can tell instantly if they're have either formulated the response on their own, or they're just basically reciting something. I love all of you out there, but what their parents have told them. And once I get a read on do they even understand it, I ask them, give me on a scale of 1 to 10. I love scales, and it doesn't matter if your children are young. I do it on my college students. I coached all day today, and I probably did about 20 scales today. But I asked them on a scale of 1 to 10, now that you understand what coaching is all about, what do you think? Is it like 1, never in a million years do I want you in my life? I don't need you. I have no idea why I'm here. And this is actually how I say it. Or 10, like, where have you been all of my life? Sign me up tomorrow. And if your student gives me like a 10 or a 1, I know they're not ready. 1, they're not ready, they're closed. 10 means like they're doing it because their parents want them to. Sorry, it's true. What I want is the student that gives me the 5, 6, and 7. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll try it and see where, like, what it's really about. When I get that answer, then I kind of know this child gets it and is willing to explore it. I feel the 2 extremes, no. So that's kind of how I know. I know that sounds really interesting, but yes, but don't try that at home, parents. We have our own kind of coachy way of getting that information. Okay. So the reverse of that is, what is it? How do you know, like, because I get this all the time from parents when they say to me, well, what do you mean my child's not ready? What is it he's not ready for? So how would you explain that to a parent? Sarah, sorry, I'm going to go back.
I think it comes back to talk about knowing if they're ready. And so through that conversation, we're going to talk about, like, sometimes we'll actually get into like what they're doing, what's working, what's not working, talk about different strategies. How would you feel about maybe trying this or that? And so usually when I'm going back to the parent, having to have that conversation, it's that while they may want to improve, they don't want to make some of the hard changes that would make that possible. Some of them being as simple as not doing homework in their bed or using a planner or things like along those lines. And it's like, if they're not willing to make some changes, just them meeting with me and me checking in with your student throughout the week isn't going to get the success that you want.
But what do you think, Keith?
Well, definitely resistance to strategies. Like I've certainly had students that'll say, oh, I like to use a computer. I'm never using a planner, and many times I'll say, hey, you got to try it. If you can come up with another way of using it, on a computer that had the same strategy, I'll be open to it, but really you got to start here.
Yeah.
And also body language, if they're showing that disinterest, or you're talking to them and they're just, and I've actually have kids actually say to me, oh, my parents are making me do this. Usually that's a big red flag for me.
That's so fascinating, because my next question, I think I get this the most from parents. If my child is resistant, can I just make him do it? And I'm sorry, we're going to just use him for our purposes. But the question after that, I always get, well, if my child is resistant, can I just make him do it? So both, Keith, I'm assuming that's what you're saying there, that's a red flag, and the answer is no.
Well, I also feel like, we're not doing a service to the client, right? Because you're going to pay for something that probably is not going to work out the way you want. If your child's not open to the process and open to the coaching, it's really hard to get them to adopt the strategies and improve.
So let's dig into that a little bit. So I think all of you probably would be a little surprised, and maybe not, that I think one of the biggest questions that I get while I'm coaching a student is, and I want to make sure I actually wrote it down, is, can I ask you to discuss topics with my student, but without my student knowing I asked you? Anybody out there? I'm just curious if you want to give me oh, sorry, I closed my chat instead of opening it. Is anyone, if you want to just give me like a laugh sign or a thumbs up, because I am sure a lot of you are asking yourself, because I probably get that question from every single parent that I coach, that, hey, I'd really love you to talk to my kid about this, but I don't want them to know that I asked you. And I understand that. I am a parent of a child that is neurodiverse and went to college with a coach. And trust me, there were many times I would have loved to, and I'm a coach, I really wanted to send that coach a message going, anyway, you could ask Eli to focus on Eli on this, but don't tell him. But obviously I know not to. And we're getting some chuckles in the comment. How do you handle that? What do you say? What do you do? What's your philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, I love hearing feedback from the parents and things that they're noticing and that they think we should work on, but it's very open. Like it's the conversations, like if I'm ever talking to a parent, the student always knows about it and vice versa. But I don't think of that as a negative thing. I think it's a positive thing that hopefully improves the relationship. And so all the students I'm currently working with have really positive relationships with their parents, which is great. So yeah.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question.
How do I handle? Well, I just say to the parent, like, I think, thank you so much for letting us know, for letting me know. I'm going to talk to your son or daughter on Monday. And I'll just let them know that we had this conversation. Yeah.
Okay.
It's never been I haven't had a big issue with it, but it's very open. Yeah.
Okay. Keith, how do you play it?
So for me, I always will come back with, I don't want to break trust with the child. The student trusts me. And if mom and dad are pushing the agenda, then they're going to feel like I'm pushing that agenda and they're not going to be open to the coaching. But many times I'll say, listen, if there's something you want, like if you discuss it with them or you let them know and I'm going to bring it up, I'll no problem bringing it up. It has to be transparent, because I do think that if they figure, oh, he's just doing this because my parents told me, that could really be detrimental actually to the coaching relationship.
I agree with you. I do that. I am more than happy. I coached all day today. I had emails last night. I'm back going. I am more than happy to bring it up, because this is what I do want to say as a positive to parents. We're only as good as what information we're given, is how I look at it. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
And there are plenty of things that are going on, even on a college level, things that might be going on at home or things going on with that student that we're just not privy to. So I look at that as information gathering. So I don't ever have a problem going, wow, I really appreciate that information, but I need to let your student know that we discussed it. I'm on your page. There's just no secrets ever. There's no secrets. Everybody knows, like the first thing I will say to a student too is, you need to know your parent reached out to me yesterday. Because I believe that I fundamentally believe that the student is our client, and it's not easy. And I'm going to share this with you parents, because Leslie, I am as straight a shooter as it comes. I always say this: if I am really tired or have had more wine than I should have, and people ask me, I am as open as they come. And people say, what do you do for a living? I tell them I manage expectations. Because that is what we're doing here. We're managing, it's very difficult. We are managing a lot of expectations. We're managing our own. Because I don't know about you, and this is my follow-up question is, do you show up with, like, when I say an agenda, I don't mean it in a negative way. Like, do you show up at the table with your student coaching client going, okay, today I really want to focus on, and your agenda goes out the window because you're managing the expectation of the student who comes to the table going, I have something completely else I need to be working on. Or the parent might have given you some good thing that you need to be focusing on. Does that happen to you a lot? And my follow-up is, who drives your sessions? Do your students drive it, or do you?
Do you want to go first, Keith? I feel like I have.
Sure. So, definitely, I think I don't go with an agenda. I think I come in with a mindset of, okay, this is what I would like to work on today.
Yeah.
But really, first question out of my mouth is, okay, how you doing? What's going on? What do you want to talk about? Obviously I'm going to get to, we got to check portal, we got to check the grades, we got to go over everything. But I always kind of lead with, really, honestly, that icebreaker for the first 5 minutes. How was your week? What's happening? You can learn a lot in that 5 minutes about why their week might not have went well, because all of a sudden they're telling you about, well, I had this, and then I went out and did this, and then I did that. Now it's like, well, now it makes sense. So that comes back into the conversation later when we start talking time management and everything. So.
Right. I sometimes ask a student, actually, I'm like, tell me what problem you solved this week. Okay. And that in and of itself, like, just kind of opens the floodgates and really focuses the agenda on what they need to cover. Okay, Sarah, this one's for you. My child gets good grades. This is your question that you said you got asked a lot, but struggles with everything else.
Yeah.
would coaching be helpful?
I get it a lot. And in my experience, I've had a number of students in that situation. And if the student is open, it has been like incredibly helpful, because the coaching isn't really about the grades, right? The coaching is
Not
about
about the
learning
grades.
better strategies for school and for life. And so just because your student's getting good grades, if they're pulling a lot of all-nighters and they're super stressed and they're not making time for friends, they're not really having a good life really at that moment. So the coaching is all about, really, like he said, like time management, planning out their week, planning out the assignments so they're in smaller bite-sized pieces so that they can do the fun stuff again, so that they're getting sleep, so that they're making time for what matters. And so all of a sudden they go from, they'll go to getting good grades and just having a life and getting sleep usually.
It's why I call, if those of you out there, now I'm talking to the parents, who are looking for coaches, you might have people call themselves ADHD coaches or executive functioning coaches. I've always been a firm believer that we call ourselves academic life coaches. That's imperative to me because and I'm going to assume you two are going to, and I know this because obviously I speak to you about your clients, but I can get on with a student, and it happened to me today where she was just overwhelmed, not about school, but she had to do 5 loads of laundry. She needed to order food. She couldn't get out of her own way on her daily routine. And that's what we spent a lot of time on today. It had nothing to do with school. So I am on your page, and I'm assuming both of you agree with me that I had a professor, my very first class at Cornell, who said to me that college is 30% academics and 70% everything else. And it's that 70% that's what's going to make you successful or not. And I believe that. I believe that those life skills, those soft skills, those executive functioning skills are, and don't all come at me, are way more important than study skills. It's just how I feel. So.
Leslie, can I just interject something?
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. And really more, I think also, we sometimes this gets missed, but like high school is very structured. When they go to college, there's no structure at all.
Yeah.
And unless your kid, unfortunately, is like somebody with an IEP who's getting a lot of support, they learn the executive functioning in school. But if your child's not, they don't learn all those skills. And then they go to college and they have all this time on their hands and they don't know what to do with it. And if they don't have those time management skills and understand how to process that and manage their time, it really does impact their ability to be successful in college, because it's a complete shift from what they're used to.
So back in June, I did in here in the Facebook group, I did a college transition night and one of the questions that I prepared, and one of the questions somebody asked me is, okay, what are your top 2 skills that you think a student needs to be successful in college? And my 2, and I don't want to do this because I know there's people on the line that are not just for college, high school, was time management and willpower. And someone went, not study skills. I'm like, yeah, I've been coaching for 19 years. I'm like, they'll learn that, but they need that willpower gene. And I don't even mean willpower against things that are like, it's just even willpower like, hey, I want to go down the hall and watch football with my buddies. You know what I mean? Something very like benign. Okay. So I want to do this. We have a lot of questions. So I'm going to stop us and I'm going to take some cues from everybody. All right. Hi, everyone. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Give me a minute. Okay. Karen asks, all right. Robin goes, I need a coach for my senior who can continue as he goes to college. I need to learn how to decrease my involvement and increase his independence. Robin, you've come to the right place. That is, I'm looking at my 2-star coaches here. I think it's safe to say that is exactly what we do. Yeah. Okay. So Robin, that's what I'm not going to go into it. If you are interested in coaching, you can reach out and we will walk you through the process because I really didn't want this to be about like, we're here to sell you coaching. We're really not. I'm going to be honest. We're really busy. And so that's a great thing. But I felt like what was missing were answers to so many of your questions. And also, I know I'm very straightforward. We see on our Facebook group so many of you asking, hey, does anybody know of a good academic coach, and like an academic life coach? And I'm like, that's what we do. So we wanted to bring you this tonight so that you had a lot of, as I say, bring A's to your Q's. Okay, so Robin, reach out, please. Okay, Karen, she's also looking for a coach. All right, you need to email us privately at info@orderofokchaos.com. Okay, someone writes, oftentimes struggling kids will not be truthful to the coach. Oh, that's a good one. This is from Latanya. Latanya, you are spot on, because they feel shame regarding their progress. If parents are not involved to give a different perspective, how can coaching be effective?
Well, I'd be happy to answer part of that. So when we're doing
Great question. Can we just stop for a second, coaches, and say, amazing question?
yeah, happens all the time.
Happens all the time.
Happened today a few times.
Me too. Go
but
for it.
The benefit to the coaching sessions, we do them on Zoom, and I always have the students share their screen. And so, and they are, when we're one-on-one together, they are actually pretty honest, where sometimes the misinformation comes is through the check-ins throughout the week. Is what I find most of, but we're logging into their portals. We're seeing their grades. We're seeing if the assignments were submitted. I'm seeing that information. So it's hard in that scenario to say like, oh, I turned in my paper. Oh, wait, it's just unattached. Let's attach it. Oh, wait, maybe I thought I wrote it, but maybe I didn't write it. Like, it's much more black and white in a lot of the scenarios. And even in the situations where there was misinformation shared throughout the week on the texting, it usually comes out honestly in the conversation where we're talking about, did you go to, how was class? Like if it's a situation where they're not always going to class, like how was class? And then usually they are honest in person. We talk about why it didn't happen and strategies for the next week. So, yeah.
I'm going to insert myself here and say too, that I think, and this is my little insight. Number one, we've all been coaching for a very long time. So we need there to be a level of trust from the parent to give us the trust to know that we can sometimes really tell if your child is not telling us the truth. Number one, there is a reason why we do everything on video. And to Sarah's point, we are sharing screens. We are also seeing your student. And I have seen many kids, bodies change, faces change, demeanors change as semesters have gone on, to be able to raise a red flag for then me to turn to a parent and go, I don't like what I'm seeing. What am I missing? So it's not that we're not discussing things with you. It's just that we are not doing it without everybody knowing. And I want to make that clear. And I think you two would agree with me. Parents' perspective is paramount to the success of the coaching process. It just is not done underhandedly. So I and my coaches reach out all the time to a parent. I did it today, going red flag today, not liking what I saw on video. What am I missing? Literally, that's the email I wrote. So to your point, we are in constant contact with the parent. It's just done in, I think I want to say, in the way that we do it. Would you agree, Keith and Sarah?
Yeah, like definitely if I see something going on or I'm concerned about something, I'm always going to reach out to the parent.
Right.
And I tell the parents if they have any questions or they can reach out to me. I'm happy to share as long as I'm sharing what we discussed. And, just kind of tack onto what Sarah was saying before too. When I do the assessment, that's one of the things I'm very honest with them about. I tell them, look, I'm going to check your grades. If you're missing something, it's okay. If you got a bad grade, it's okay. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to be mad at you. I just need to know, because if you're not doing well in something, if you hide it from me, I can't help you fix it. If I know that you're struggling, we can work on it. We can make it better. And the other thing I do is when they log on, I make them refresh the screen, because I've learned how they can figure out how to put their own little grades in, right? Especially in college.
I do that too.
I make them refresh the screen. That way I know I'm looking at exactly what's out there. And but I feel when having that conversation ahead of time, I think it puts them at ease. And I've really rarely had a kid lie to me about anything.
No, I agree with you. And I think there's also this thing, parents, where I say this right up front. I'm not your parent and I'm not your professor. And I'm Leslie, I'm your coach. they don't call us professor. They don't call us, you know, Ms., Mrs., or Mr. They call us by, actually, I have one kid who calls me coach. He likes that. And I'm so cool with that. So I think there is that level of like walking alongside them, and there's no judgment in the room. There's no nothing. It's not, I can't believe you didn't do that. It's let's dig in and figure out why. Would you both agree with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Oh my God. So many questions. I'm so happy. I know you probably think I'm ridiculous, but like when we do night, like, you know, I didn't know, there could be nobody who showed up. So I'm so happy that this was right. Okay. Wow. All right. Oh, wow. Okay. Sorry, there's just so many questions, and I'm trying to find ones that are not about their own kid, but a little more. This is a great one. This comes from Barbara, and I'm going to throw this out to my coaches. What's the best way to approach a child about coaching? I know my answer, but let's hear from you all. Like, how should a parent approach the coach? Like, hey, I think coaching might benefit you. How do they have that conversation?
So, I mean, the first step when a parent reaches out is that the parent and I have a conversation to talk about their child and their goals for their child and just learn more about who their child is. And then I always ask, you know, the next step is setting up that assessment with their child, but I always ask that they just ask if they're open to having a conversation about working with a coach, about working with a coach. And then after that conversation, we'll talk about if it's the right fit or if it's not. So it's really about, are you open to talking to a coach to get a little bit more support? And then after you talk to them, we'll go ahead and decide if it's right or wrong. So.
Yeah. I also kind of share with them like the role of a coach. I always try to compare it to like either sports or dance or some type of activity that the child's doing. And like, you know, what's the coach's job? They're not there to tell you, they're there to give you skills. They're help you run the plays or help you learn the dance moves or whatever it is to help support you to make sure that you can perfect those skills. That's what we're here for. You know, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to coach you on it and so think of it like a sports coach or a dance coach or a drama coach. This is an academic coach. It's all about taking what you have and helping you make it better.
Both brilliant answers. But I think, Keita, I love what you said, but I want to just harp on what you said, Sarah, because the difference that I see sometimes as a parent after they get off the phone with me or one of you is they go to their student, they're like, I found this great coach. You're going to get on, you're going to coach with them. And that's not it. We want to make sure the student is in control from the very beginning, right? That they have choice and control. So to Sarah, I want to reiterate what you said, because I think it's really important that notice that Sarah didn't say, hey, I found you a coach and you're going to coach with them. She asked permission. Hey, would you like to speak to this coach and get a flavor or get an idea? And I think there is a fundamental difference in that conversation, which allows a student to say, all right, I'm in charge of this. And you're not asking me to do this. You're asking me to like figure it out. So I think that's great. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm on my phone looking and I'm scrolling. Okay, we answered that. Carrie, how do we find a coach? You're right here. That's an easy one. Just if you are interested in coaching, we have a student coaching page on our website. You can watch this video again and you can reach out to info@order-chaos. Okay, at what age would coaching be beneficial? What do you think? I want to take that.
Me.
Whoever,
we're casual here tonight. Whoever wants.
I'll start. I think. I've coached kids in middle school. You know, they're not. You know, I think it's a little harder sometimes because I'm not sure that they're quite cognitively like ready to accept what coaching is. You know, I think high school and college are core. You know. Especially I find college, you know, I find 11th grade, 12th grade and college freshman. That's like really the meat. That's when they take it, they grasp it. And there's vested interest there too, because they know about getting into school and my grades, and this is important. So.
Right. I agree with you on that. I think there's a maturity, particularly because coaching is virtual.
Okay.
Sarah, would you agree on that?
I would. And I was going to say it actually depends on the child, where some students are like I've worked with this one student for a while who we started in 8th grade, and it went really, really well and really helped that student transition to high school. But I've worked with juniors that like weren't ready for the virtual coaching and didn't have a good enough relationship with their parents, because in high school there still is to be a little bit more parent involvement, because we don't know everything. When we did that coaching once a week to plan for the whole week, like a lot of things come up midweek. And so it didn't even work with the junior in high school because they just weren't ready and they didn't have a good enough relationship with their parent to make it work. So Keith is right most of the time, but that again, it comes back down to the parent and the student.
Right, the whole self. Okay, this is actually one of the questions we were going to cover, so easy one for all of us. This one is from Cheryl. What is covered in coaching? Note-taking, time management, how to tackle big projects, study skills. Should we just keep saying yes, yes, and yes to all of that? So you know what we're going to do? We're going to stop for a second. We're going to take Cheryl's question and kind of amp it out. So I'm assuming you would all, I know you guys, obviously that is what we do, but not all of it and not all of it at the same time. Who wants to discuss shortly, because we have so many questions, like what does a session look like? Because I get that is probably the question I get asked the most. Can you explain to me what a typical session looks like? And I'm thinking all of you out there would want that question answered. You can just give me a thumbs up if I'm on the right track there, but that question is important to you. And you guys can duke it out on who's going to go first. Keith, I'm looking at you.
Okay.
Tell me what is typical. Now again, I'm going to preempt this for everybody. No sessions are the same. Every coach is different. Everything, but just you know what I'm asking.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, keep it quick. I mean, always first 5 minutes, what's going on? Connect, have that human connection. Ask what any issues. So I can identify anything that might have took place that week that they're struggling with. I come with my tool belt of strategies to teach, but I don't necessarily plan what I'm going to teach. If he struggled that week with a paper or a project, or he's got a couple of tests, or she's got a couple of tests coming up, then I'm going to focus on the strategies that are going to support that. So usually I'll go through a strategy. Halfway through, I will, check the portal, check the grades, make sure everything's okay. If there's things missing or things need, we'll identify a plan. I have a lot of my students text me their planner every once or twice a week so I could see it. So if I see something pop up, like all of a sudden on Wednesday, there's a test that I didn't see on Sunday coming up on Tuesday, I'll text them, hey, do you want to get together for a quick 5-minute call and strategize? But the typical call is checking the grades, connecting with them, making sure everything's up to date. And then based on the conversation, giving them a strategy. And once in a while, it's not academic. Sometimes it's like, I'm struggling to make friends. How do I be more social? Or I'm struggling with some anxiety. How do I manage my anxiety around this? And, I'll coach them around that. I really, I want them to get the academic part, but to me, it's all about what I need them to walk away from that call feeling like they got value and they feel better than when they got on the call.
I agree with that. Sarah?
Yeah, so I think I'll give a sample of how the coaching sessions work often when we first start, and then they often evolve to what's going to be better for the student. But like he said, it always starts with how are you doing? How was your week? And also what do you want to add to the agenda? Is there anything you want to talk about different today? So I make sure I can prioritize what's on their mind. And then we often start with logging into the portal and kind of going through class by class, comparing what was planned for last week and what's coming up this week, and really kind of breaking it down and writing it out. And then after we kind of go through that, we also look at what fun things do you have going on that week, so they can make sure they're planning around that. Hopefully there's time to jump into something. So maybe they're having trouble getting started on a paper, maybe they're having trouble with a certain homework assignment. So we'll email the professor about going to office hours or something like that. So I love it. There isn't always time for that, but I love when there's time to actually make some things happen. And then as time goes on, you kind of see where the student's struggling. So I've had students where you make all these plans and then you find out not much is happening throughout the week. And sometimes I'll flip it around because there's no use of a plan if it's not happening. So we might spend the first 30 minutes working on something that a class they've been really struggling. And then we'll just plan as much as we can in the last 20 minutes, because I'd rather do less planning and have them get over the anxiety of getting started. So we'll try to do what's best for your student in that moment. Yeah.
So I'm going to add to that because someone asked the question about advocating for their needs.
Yeah.
I incorporate that into, so I believe in advocating for their needs. It doesn't necessarily mean it's school, it's always school related, not school related. It doesn't always have to be academic related, right? Like, what is it you need? And to your point, it might be I'm having trouble with my roommate, or I'm having trouble with a professor, or what I mean is it's not always like I'm having trouble writing a paper. So to me, advocating really takes on a very large meaning. So I feel like I make sure, so I have this thing at the beginning of every session of my kids. I ask them, tell me one problem you had this week and how did you solve it? And I'm not doing that during my text, like during the week, because it's too big. During the week, it's much more like I tend to give my kids homework, and homework is very little. It's not like pages of homework. It's when you complete something, I want you to text me or snap a photo of your planner. I'm a big snap your photo of your planner, big snap a photo, or your electronic planner. But the problem thing for me is where I build that advocating piece. Because what I feel, and I'm a little teaching for you, maybe a little teaching for parents, that the whole word of problem solving needs a rebranding. It needs a makeover. There is nothing wrong with, like, we all look at problems as, oh, I have a problem. And I'm like, you have a problem. Problems happen. How are we solving it? What did you do? What worked? What didn't? And I find that that's my way into building advocating skills. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense for you all down there? So that's how you can't just teach a kid like, and it's also done in like little things like okay, let's go over like, beginning of the semester. That's why I'm thinking of it. Like, did you all put in for your accommodations? These are college kids. All right. What's holding you back? And to Sarah's point, let's just do it. Sometimes it's doing it together that gets them right. There's a lot of doing things together. There's a lot of writing to professors. There's a lot of sending in the accommodations, and your student just sometimes feels less anxious when there's a body double. Right? Do you guys agree with that? Okay.
100%. I also think with the advocacy, another way to advocate is teaching them it's okay to ask for help.
Oh.
A lot of kids don't want to ask for help. They feel bad. I'm like, you ask for help. If you ask for help, your professor knows you care. They're going to see you very differently as a student than the student who's struggling and never says anything.
100%. 100%. That even going to a professor and saying, help, I'm struggling, or help, I don't know, is better than nothing. And I think sometimes that's all they can muster. So keep brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Okay, more questions. So this is like very meta. I have to say this because as coaches, sometimes we come to the table with our kids having a whole agenda and it gets thrown out the window. And we had a whole agenda, and guess what? We're throwing it out the window. So this is kind of how it goes. So very meta experience this evening. All right, man. So happy you're all here. All right, so Cheryl, I hope we answered your question. Yes, note taking, time management, study skills, how to tackle big projects, how to self-advocate, how to organize, how to do laundry. I did that today with someone. I mean, really crazy. You should all be teaching your kids how to do laundry before they go to college. Sorry. Yeah. Would you all agree with me on that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you had more time, you have a great story.
Yeah. Well, we'll do that off camera. Okay. Is there anything? Okay. So wait. I'm sorry. I'm getting to, there's just a lot of questions, friends. Can you please, Karen, Karen wants to know about boot camp versus coaching. Keith, I'm going to give you that one. Okay.
So boot camp is definitely, we have an agenda to make sure we give them the strategies that they came for. And, of course, I'm going to connect with the child and make sure that there's a relationship there, but it's really about, let's get in here, let's get you the strategies, let's teach you the strategies. But at the end of the day, if they don't adopt the strategies, and as parents, you don't support those strategies at home, For it to work, everybody has to be involved. It's got to be an effort from everybody. The one-on-one coaching, I definitely, I'm on with them weekly, so I'm on top of everything. So like Sarah said before, we're not the parent, but we kind of can see what's going on and direct them the right way. It's a lot more one-on-one versus, hey, here's just a bunch of info. I mean, we're very clear about how we give the information, but there's a definite distinction between here's strategies and let me help you implement them.
Right. I look at boot camp as very skill-based. It's very skill-driven. And I don't want to sound rude, but there's a difference why we coach versus doing something like that. But we don't get to know the ins and outs of your child. We don't get to know them holistically because we just don't. That's just why there's boot camp versus coaching. It's very skill-based. It's transferring skills, it's teaching, but there's a beginning, middle, and end to the process of boot camp. I tend to like boot camp. I'm going to say it. I developed it for middle schoolers. I feel it's the sweet spot of maybe coaching. They're not ready for the responsibility of coaching, but they need the skill. Now, we've also had a lot of kids go through boot camp and then want coaching too, and that's fine. But you want to talk to that, Sarah?
I actually think it's a great strategy. Like if you're considering coaching, do the boot camp because you're ignoring all the other stuff going on, and you really have these 3 Zooms to just focus on the skills. And what happens in the coaching is like, there's these really big problems that are popping up right from the beginning. And there often isn't time in those first few months to like be teaching some of those skills, because it's like, there's all this other stuff going on. There's anxieties, so they're not going to class, or that really is the priority. So I actually love when a student starts with boot camp and then goes into coaching.
All right, I'm going to ask, so I'm going to stop us all for a second. I'm on the West Coast. It is 10, it's 10 to, what time is it on your end?
10 to 8.
What time is it?
10 to 8.
Okay, we haven't even scratched the surface on the questions. Do you mind if we go longer than an hour? Do you both okay with that?
Sure.
I could go a little longer, yeah.
Okay, so here's what I want to tell parents. If for whatever reason you can only stay on for the hour, do not sweat it. This is all being recorded and it will be live and living in our Facebook group. Actually, it's going to live in 2 places. It's going to live in our Facebook group. It's also going to live on our student coaching page on our website, because we needed something like this that you can really dig into. So don't sweat it if you have to go. You can watch this in its entirety, probably even later today or tonight. Okay, let me try to get to, there's just endless, this is great. There's just a lot of questions. Okay. Maura, I'm going to answer your question really quickly about how do I know? She asked about a planner is only as good as the info input. So how do I ensure everything is really in there? I actually find that to be very easy. I'm going to take this one. I keep a planner that matches every one of my students. So if Seth has a planner, Leslie has Seth's planner. I match them. I also have their syllabi, and I'm checking in 3 times a week what's changed, what's new, what's been updated. I'm checking the portal with them, or not so much their portals, but like their individual class websites. So I actually find that is the one thing that I am very up to date on, is what is happening. For lack of time, I'm just going to answer it on behalf of all of us, because that's just something I actually feel like I've cracked the code on. So that answers Maura's question. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to go. I feel bad if I skip. This is insane. Is grade 10 a good time if the student is ready? I'm going to answer, right? Yes. You would say if the student's ready. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely yes to that. Megan, yes. This is from Stacy. How do you deal with a high school student who wants to do better and put processes in place, but then fails on motivation and the power through? Can coaching help them find this for themselves?
Yeah.
Keith, yes.
Sure.
I would say that is the essence of coaching. Would you agree?
Yeah, and we talk a lot about structure and strategies that take motivation kind of out of the game, because everybody loses motivation. That's normal. And so you need strategies in place to help with that.
And I'm also like big on building rewards in for the things that they struggle with, so And of course, like you always say, chunking it, right? Doing little bite size, it gets done. You got to start.
I look at it as what I call barriers to entry. That's how I say it with them. What are your barriers to entry? Because we're dealing with so much overwhelm that I have to remove all of those barriers to get them to the next step. And it's that tiny little step, one email, one problem, one, the power of one. It's really it. Okay. So I just want to say this to you all. We are sticking to the coaching conversation. There's some questions that are just, hey, my kid is struck. I just want to say, this is our coaching. Bring those questions. We have our monthly Q&As, which are like office hours where you can come in, drop in. I'm there and I answer any question that anyone gives me. But tonight we're going to stay focused on coaching. So I just wanted to say that. Okay. I'm just sorry, guys. It's a lot and I'm looking at a tiny screen. Exactly what, okay. How do you show, this is a good one. Thank you, Janron. How do you show concern as a parent, I'm assuming, and not be overbearing? Do you want to take it?
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
So as a parent, right, I understand that concern, right? I think sometimes that anxiety that we get over worrying about our child, Leslie, you alluded to it earlier. The best way to learn is through questions and having them figure out themselves, so as hard as it is to not want to back off, but if, find a way to ask questions to them, instead of like, hey, not how'd you do on your test? How was this? How's everything going? Right. But like when I talk to the student, I try very hard to I want them to solve their own problem. I think when we solve problems for them, it actually does them a disservice. I said, like, and you know what? I also talk about failure. Failure is okay. It's okay to fail. Like you learn from failure. A lot of kids are scared to fail because they think it's such a bad thing. It's like, no, you know what? I tell my kids all the time, I want you to fail. The more you fail, the more you're going to grow.
100%. I think, Sharon, for the interest of time, I'm going to just flop the questions. The other thing I always say to a parent who asks me, the one thing I am going to add about concern and not being overbearing, that's where your coach comes in. Right? Wouldn't you agree with that? I have a lot of parents who go, oh, thank God for you. Because I can take a step back and they can take a step back and I can take a step forward. I always say, let me be the overbearing one, because I'm not going to be overbearing the way you might be perceived as being overbearing. It's not our student. Listen, I know my coaches, we love your kid like we love ours, and we work, this is my party line. I say this to all of my students. I will work as hard as you, just not harder. So yeah. A lot, right? So we absorb a lot of that, I don't know football that well, but we're like that first line of tackle or whatever you call it, or first line of defense, sorry. Right, so that is actually very helpful. Okay, thank you. Choice and control, always. Do you help? Someone asked, do you help teach them strategies for advocating? Yes, I think we covered the advocating, and like I said about the problem solving, we talk about it. I mentioned accommodations. Yes, we talk about how to advocate. Yeah, a lot. Do you want to say something, Sarah?
I would say, and we actually help make it happen. So it's not just we talk about that, but like we do the emails, we send the emails to professors with the letters, we like set up the appointments. So it's not 100%. Just, that's not a conversation, that's an action. Yeah.
And I kind of even say to them sometimes, like, the email will help kind of like ease the path to where you want to go, because it's not in person. Like you and I, when all of us went to school, we had to show up at our teacher's door, professor's door, and explain what our issue is. Sometimes that email is a nice inroad. Right? Wouldn't you agree? And when they see it that way, they're more apt to do it. Okay, moving. Sorry, it's jumpy. Okay, is there anything specific parents can do? I'm going to give this one to Sarah. Is there anything specific parents can do with elementary age students to lay the ground for coaching when they're a bit older?
Yeah, I mean, I think
really good question.
I love this question. Yeah, I think there's a ton you can do. And I think I'll pick two things to start with. Like, so learning how to plan is helpful. And actually, like elementary school, like maybe they're starting to like, you could use the planner in elementary school, but it's just starting to learn when something gets assigned to like write it down and check it off and see when you're going to do it, because that's something you will carry with you. And the other thing is like really simple study strategies, making flashcards in elementary school, like simple things like that, so that because we work with a lot of students, even in high school and college, they really have no idea how to actually study. I still have students like this. So just like really want it super simple and little, but you can start really young.
Would you agree, Keith?
Yeah. What I also think is great, and because how many times you put your kid to bed, right? You read them a story. That age group, they love stories. And if you can teach them a study habit through a story, make up a little story about the boy that went to school, the girl that went to school and didn't do this, and the other girl that did. And they get that. Like stories, social stories really help that age group grasp on strategies.
I agree. I think that's brilliant. And even to that point, to take it further, I think any way you can even teach your elementary school something through something that's very tactile. So if they're, if they have to learn, like, I don't want to say the alphabet, but if they have to learn something like an ordination, put it to music. Let them learn it in a song. I always joke, and I am literally telling parents, you out there, how I speak to my students. So when I was in college, I had to learn the Greek alphabet. And the only way to this day, I still remember it, is because I put it to music. So when I tell them that strategy, they're like, oh, I want to learn how to, like my college student, I never thought of that. Wow, even this is to college, but you can even with an elementary school, let them make up a dance to learn about Mesopotamia. I don't know what you learn. I don't remember what you learned, but any way that you can infuse multimodal learning, which is like dance or music or touch or drawing, anyway, is a great way to start that process. I'm not selling planners. We're not talking about planners tonight in the context, but one of the reasons why we developed the stickers was for our younger students, because for them, putting a sticker on time or putting a sticker on an activity was a way for them to, again, put their whole self in to learn in a way that really spoke to them. So there you go. Right? Okay. Sorry, we are still going. Okay, how to add that. We talked about accommodations. Thank you. Someone says we're the best. Someone said, I have a new college freshman and he's already falling behind and feeling overwhelmed. Should we start with coaching?
100%.
I think coaching is magical. Do you? I mean, can we talk about that for a minute? I mean, I feel like we didn't say that in our little script. But I know, what question I do want to ask us, because I think this will make parents feel easy. How long does it usually take before we see results or positive changes? I think that's a question we need to answer. Even though it was not asked, I'm thinking everyone out there might be feeling that question.
Yeah. So I think positive changes, I want to separate positive changes probably from results, because I think the positive changes start pretty fast, like it could be possibly within like a week or two, or certainly usually within like 4 weeks, I would say. But the results really depend on the student. It depends on when they start. Like, so if they're starting from behind, that takes longer because it's much easier to implement strategies when they're feeling on top of things than when they're really feeling anxious and stressed and not sleeping. But I would say like the big results usually start to come in the second, probably like semester you're working together. You're talking big results, to be honest. But that doesn't mean there's really positive changes usually that happen pretty fast. Like they'll start saying, like, oh, I tried this today and this worked and they're excited about it. And this is going to, in the long run, really help them, but those results may not be showing up yet.
Yeah.
Keith, I'm going to let you answer that
Yeah.
also, because I think that's an important question.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I would probably echo exactly what Sarah said, but also I think the way you could tell too is like their mood in general, right? How they talk about school, how they interact. I also think, like Sarah said, it really depends on the student. I mean, I've had students that were like, it's like somebody needing help that doesn't want the help and they finally want the help. When you get those students that they're like, I need this, they grasp onto it. They make progress very fast because they're implementing everything we're telling them to do. and offering to them because they want to do better. Also, it takes, what is it? I think it's 62 days to develop a habit, right? This is all habit building. So, they're not, it's going to take time for them to develop the habit, but, and they're going to not always be perfect, and there's going to have those bad days, but over time, as they start to develop that habit, it just becomes part of how they operate. And that's when you really see it. So like Sarah said, that's why that second semester is when you really see it. They need that first semester to take what we're showing them, putting it to use, seeing what works for them, what doesn't work for them, helping them adjust strategies that work for them. Like sometimes a student will say, I don't want to do it this way. That's fine. Come up with a way for me that you could do it, not using my strategy. I'm okay with it. You just have to come up with something comparable. And if they do, now they feel better. Now they move forward on that strategy instead of being stuck on my strategy, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. All right. So on that note, how do you handle things if they don't follow through or do what you're asking them? It's interesting. Nobody asked that question in the comments, but I get asked that, or we get asked that a lot. Just when parents are interested in coaching process, they'll go, well, what happens if my kid doesn't do what you want them to do? How do you handle that? What happens? And I'm going to please have both of you answer that, because I'm thinking I'm going to get very different answers in a good way.
So I think, so with the not following through, it depends a little, like how often it's happening and what it's happening. So if they're not like, because we need to know kind of why it's happening. Like, is it they're, because we could implement different strategies and we'll take different paths. Now, if it's continuously not happening and it's happening more generally or specifically with one class they're really struggling, that's where always very open with the student, but you'll reach out to the parent and kind of bring them into the loop depending on like what direction this is going with. Now, if they're not following through, it's a learning thing, it's not affecting grades, it's, maybe the parent comes in a little later, but if this means like they're in jeopardy of failing a class or something like that, we're gonna keep everyone in the loop about what's really happening.
Yes. Keith?
Yeah. So again, I would echo everything Sarah just said. I think,
So do I.
I think for me, like, also with the student is, if they're not following through, I do a lot of future thinking, right? Like, okay, well, like if you don't do this, how is this going to impact you? What's the impact of you not doing this? What's the impact of you not changing this behavior? What's the impact of you not using the planner? What's the impact of you not writing this down? Like I want them to think for themselves, well, yeah, if I don't do this, this is going to happen. And then how's that impact you further down the road, right? Like getting them to think about how their actions are not serving them and showing them how that if they do take these actions, how it will serve them better. Sometimes they need to see, if I'm going to do this, well, what's the benefit for me? Like what's in it for me, right? If I'm going to do this, what's in it for me? And sometimes you need to ask them questions that way to get them to map it out in their head so they see the end game.
It's both of you made me think that it's actually, and I think that it's important for parents to hear us all say this, that question in and of itself, in my book, doesn't have a clear answer. Because I will say to a student at the beginning when I first meet them that this is like a no judgment zone. So if you don't do something that you might have said we were going to do, I am not there to judge you and come down on you. The only thing that, I have my biggest thing is you just don't lie to me. I don't want to be lied to. I want to create a safe space for you to be able to say to me, I couldn't do it, or I didn't do it. I might not even know why I didn't, but it's our job as the coach to figure out the why. So it's not to your point too, Sarah, the road kind of splits.
Yeah.
Depending on like what it is and how it went down. And I mean, we all don't do everything we're going to do. I'm very forgiving but if it's really fundamentally a problem or fundamentally something that is affecting and is, is bleeding to other things, then yes, then it's time to, I think, call in the troops, parents and what have you.
Can I add one thing too? I would say is
I think this is a really important question because I feel like it's funny, no one asked it, but we get asked that question all the time.
Yeah. So, and when there are situations where, you need to bring a parent in the loop at this point, I always first have the conversation and usually ask the student, can you please chat with your parent first, and we'll make a plan on what day it's going to happen. So it's actually, I love it not coming from me, because this comes back to them taking ownership and learning to have these conversations. And then I will check in with them to make sure that happened. Now, if they don't have the conversation in the timely manner, that's when I'll send the email and set up a call. But often it doesn't even have to come from me. And I think that's even a growth opportunity for the student too. So
That's a great response. I like that. I didn't know. I do. I think that's really brilliant. Okay, Keith.
Yeah, I was just saying, I've also had students ask me, like, same thing, where I'm like, you really need to have this conversation with your parents and let them know what you're struggling with. And, they'll say to me, but I don't know how to have it, and there are times I'll either coach them through that, or I've had a couple of students where I'm like, you know what, we're gonna get on a phone call with your parents. I'm not gonna do talking. You are. I'm just gonna be there listening, so you know that I'm here, but you need to have the conversation. And
Right.
I've done that sometimes too. And sometimes, just like you said, sometimes having that person, just knowing, all right, my coach is here, it automatically kind of builds a little confidence, and they're able to have that conversation. Because it's always worse. They're anticipating, what mom or dad are going to say, and it's never going to be what they expected.
Never.
They always think it's going to be worse than it's never turns out the way they thought it was going to be.
I'm totally in agreement of that. I'm
Great.
just looking at people's comments. Okay, so I still have a couple more questions that I think is really important for us to get to. I want to talk about our students, because obviously over the last few years, we've seen more and more students struggle with anxiety, stress, overwhelm, all of that. More so than I believe, and I've been doing this for a lifetime, more so than ever before. And degrees of it, like manageable to, unfortunately, I had a student this year even where I'm going to say this, and I'm obviously not going to tell you who it was, but I had a child this past spring who tried to take his life. So we as coaches have been tasked with things that even we were not trained for. And I need you to understand this. So I'm going to talk for 2 seconds, that we are acutely aware of where we begin and end. I think that's a really, really important thing to tell parents. I tell parents that all the time. I told you I was kind of funny when I said I manage expectations. Now I'm not being funny, is I am very, very, very careful of where I begin and where I end. And it's very important at the beginning, even if your child is over 18, that we are very clear on the parameters of what we will go to a parent about, even without a student's permission. So I am very upfront about it with my students. If I see things that are happening, so to this point, there were major red flags, and the minute I hung up, I went to that parent and I said, you need to get on the phone or call your student, but this is not a good situation, and it is not. I am not trained for that, and it all worked out. Well, you know what I mean. But I want you all to know that as coaches, we are watching. That's why video is so important. I have seen kids cutting, and I've seen it. I've seen kids look healthy, and a month later, they are shells of themselves because God knows what's happening. I've seen in the back, because your kids are not that bright every now and then, where I've seen more paraphernalia than I know, and then I found that they're dealing. Oh yeah, for every one of your kids, I have a story to tell you. So I have to let you all know that we are watching, and that I will, and my coaches will break what I call ethics if your kid is in trouble. Would you both agree with me on that one?
100%.
Right, no questions asked. At that point, I don't give a crap what your kid thinks. Sorry, because that's when it's our duty to be saying, we need you to know this because we're out of our element. So I needed to say that. But I do want to spend a couple minutes talking about the kid that does struggle, that is anxious, that anxiety that we as coaches that are schooled and trained to handle. So how do you manage a child, as you said, who is very anxious and very stressed and overwhelmed? Someone who wants to take that.
I mean, I think it's most of the students, not a number of the students I work with have those struggles, and it's a part of the conversation every single week. It's a part of when are you like a lot of them have therapists they meet with, and that's their responsibility, but we'll have the conversation. When is the next time you're meeting with them? Can you make sure to talk about this? And you're right, like there's a number of times I've reached out to parents and said, I'm really concerned. Like I I think you need to talk to your student. And I've had conversations with those parents of like, you have me as the coach working on the school stuff. So it probably would be better at this point to be a little bit more of the friend, so you can know a little bit more really what's going on, because at the core of a lot of these school problems are the anxiety and like there's a lot of like less sleep problems that then play into that more, like depression. And so there's a lot of that going on right now.
100%. Keith,
Yeah.
I'm going to let you.
Sure. So again, like we know our role, we know what we can't handle. Certainly if I have a child who's, severe depression and or severe anxiety, we need to alert the parent to that and make sure they get them directed to the help they need. But as far as just like general, kids are anxious, right, about certain things before tests or about work coming up, or they have so much to do. I definitely can give them strategies. I mean, I talk to them about changing their physiology, like when they're on their own head and they can't get out of it, like get up and walk away, like go,
Right.
just go put some cold water on your face. You got to just get out of the moment. And then also a lot of these kids have things in their brain. I'm like, you got to brain dump, you got to make a to-do list, and then you got to take that to-do list and you got to schedule that to-do list. Because if, brain dumping only helps a little bit. If you don't take the list and schedule it, then you're still stressed out about the list. So just things like that will definitely help lower anxiety. I'll definitely have those conversations. But when it comes to like really, they're really struggling with it, we definitely need to leave that to the professionals.
Right. But I feel that our work does serve kids that are stressed. And when I say anxious, I think you all understand what we mean, what the level of anxiety is. In fact, I think what we do is, and I use this analogy, is we stop that snowball from becoming a giant boulder. That's what our job is. And I think that's what we do really, really well. It's the student that goes, oh, I forgot to hand in my physics homework one night. Oh no, what's my teacher going to think? I'm so stuck, I'm not going to do it another night. Now he's 5 nights in, now he didn't study for the test, and now he's failing physics. Our job is to cut it at the one. So that, right? I really feel that way about what we do, is we are trying to stop that. I have all my isms. I call it the parade of horribles. So that actually came from my own house with my own kids. I call it the parade of horribles. And my parent coaches, I coach parents and they love that. And my students kind of laugh at it because it's very visual. It's the kid that dropped like ginger ale. I had a kid who dropped ginger ale on his computer and 30 seconds later was calling his parents, telling them he was going to fail out of school, come pick me up. Whoa, we need to back that train up, honey. What can we do about the ginger ale? Right? Can we go to do you see what I mean? So that is our job, is to try to get that parade of horribles to stop in one, what's it? Not a caboose. One train car. Okay. We're going to have one more question because I'm watching the time. Someone asked I'm going to take 2 questions, one from here and one of ours, and then we're going to call it a night. Someone asked, how do you change the mindset of a student who doesn't think they need coaching? I know what I would say to that. You don't.
But I would say sometimes it changes over time. So I've had students where we meet with and they're not ready, and then they are ready 6 months or a year later. So I wouldn't say, be open to that conversation and don't think the door is totally shut.
Right. Did you agree with that?
Sometimes it's, I hate to say it, not to make the comparison, but it's like an alcoholic, right? Like, sometimes they have to hit rock bottom and realize, oh, I do need help. And a lot of it goes back what you said, confidence or shame, right? Like they don't want to admit it. So it's easier to, but eventually if they need it, they'll come around.
All right. Well, I have one more question. We're going to take, before we do our last question, because I'm watching people come on and come off and come on. So what I said to everybody at the beginning of this video is 2 things. Number one, if after watching this live, you are interested in coaching, please reach out to info@orderoochaos.com. And we will talk to you about coaching one-on-one privately. There's been a lot of questions like, how much and how long and all that. That gets discussed privately because obviously everybody who shows up at the table has their own, concerns and questions. So we want to honor that process. So all you have to do is reach out to info@orderookс.com and we will take care of you. The other thing is, if you want to watch this video again, if you want your student to watch it, your partner, whomever, it will live here in our private Facebook group for as long as I wanted to. But it will also live on our student coaching page. And if you don't know, we do have a student coaching page on our website under services. All right, I have two things I have to do. So before I get to that very last question, I also want to remind everyone, because some of you came on before I said this is our 19th anniversary. Order Out of Chaos is 19 years old today. That is so crazy to me. I can't even. And to celebrate, we are giving away a $190 Amazon gift card. So for those of you that are on still, and if you would like to be chosen, maybe, is that the right way to say it? You've got to send an email to info@orderookс.com. All you have to write in the subject line is 19, and Laura tomorrow will pick a winner and we'll notify you all. Do not put it here. Thank you. Lots of congratulations. I know, it's crazy. I know. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. But definitely enter and somebody will win. All right. So we're going to end on a positive note. I would like to end on this like positively. And I'm going to have both of you answer this question. When do you know when a student is done with coaching? When do they graduate? When do you say,
Yeah.
go, you're good to go? Who wants to take that one as we wrap this up?
I'll start. Well, one, when they tell me they're ready, that's always a key. But also, when that's really it. When they're ready, they say I'm ready. Just because they're using the planner properly or just because they're following through on everything, sometimes they still want the support, the emotional support, or just knowing somebody's there to be with them. So, I could call you and say, oh, they're great. Planner's great. They're doing everything I said. But if they still want to talk and they're like, this is valuable to me and I really want to meet with you and I still think you can help me, like, I'm never going to bail on that student. I think they're ready when they know they're ready. I don't think anybody else can answer that question.
That's a great answer. Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I think Keith is totally right. And what I would add to that is that it depends on the student's goals. And sometimes those goals change over time. So the original plan may have been just to kind of like get them back on track. And then it may have been to like start taking different types of classes. And then it may be to like find this add-on, finding a special internship, and then finding a job as you're graduating college. So sometimes the goals change. So even though they've improved a lot. But yeah, it really, whenever they're ready is when we're ready.
Well, it's funny you said that because somebody asked here, like, do we work with kids after college, like on life? And I did not for a really long time. I really wanted to stay true to Order Out of Chaos, that we were student driven, but I am finding more and more. So we don't work with like 40-year-old adults who are neurodiverse, but we do work with young adults that are just graduating. And to Sarah's point, I do see that I might graduate a student, but now they're on the next phase of life and they want support for whatever that is. And the other thing I'm going to mention is there have been times where the student and I have said, we're good. And the parent has said, oh, no. You're going to walk down the aisle with my kid. And we figure that out. So it's, I want to just talk a little bit about the process because we didn't really get to that. At the beginning, it is mandatory that we see your child weekly. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We can't get to know your student. But on the flip side, as we have been with your student and see progress, sometimes it's not black and white, meaning we'll say, you know what, we've seen you weekly. Let's now do every other week. And then maybe we'll say, we'll do a monthly check-in and then it might be, I just need you for midterms and final. So I don't know. I've seen that too, where it's not like you're not sliced off, never to be talked to again. There can be, once we have worked with your student, established a relationship. So I just want to make that clear. That does not happen at the beginning. But once we've established that relationship, we do wean. That's a really good word, right? We do wean your student. So I think that's important too. Okay, anything as we say goodnight, anything anyone, what did we cover? What do you want parents to know? Who wants to take it?
I would just say, well, thank you for trusting us with your kids. You know, I think speak for herself, but I'm sure I speak for when I say, like, we're coming to, we do this because it's here. You know, we're not just doing this. There's a reason we do this. And so, you know, thank you for trusting us, and know that, you know, the connection we make with them. I mean, some of these kids, I know I'll be talking to this kid 10 years from now, you know, because
Yeah, you will.
there's that trust. We made that connection. You know, we become like mentors for them too. It's not just coaching. So, you know,
Yeah.
thank you for your trust, and thank you for having faith in us and letting us work with your kids.
Yeah, I'd say like seeing the changes over time is just amazing to watch. And so that's really why I do it. It's just amazing to see. And yeah, I mean, I know like with sometimes when the students graduate, like I'm way sadder because I'm like, I'm so gonna miss seeing you every week. I'm so happy for them and they're doing so well, but like you just form those relationships and you miss them. So yeah.
I could not have, you have to realize we love your kids, right? We love them. And I'm going to even go out on a limb is that they start to love us too. Don't you agree? They might not say it, but they love us. And my favorite thing is when your student shares something, not during a session, just all of a sudden I'll like look at my phone and Ava will just say like, I got into nursing school, like unprompted, and I wanted to share that. Then I know I'm making that impact with that student. So, and to your point, Sarah, I had a kid graduate this past May, and I think I cried more than their parents. So, and to Keith's point, we don't take what we do lightly. It is very, I want to say this, it is not easy to do what we do. You have to be really good listeners. Really good listeners. And you're not just listening to what they say, but what they don't say. I don't know about you two, but I spend a lot of time going, what am I not hearing? What are they not saying to me? What do I have to, and you have to do it in a way that's not offensive or overbearing. And so it's a lot of work, but it's worth it, because when you see the change and the magic there, and I'm just going to say this, these two right here are the best of the best. I have been around for a really long time. I am not blowing smoke up anyone's ass. Sorry, that's how I speak. You both know that, and you all know that too. I've been doing this for 19 years, and there's a reason why we're still here 19 years later. That's because I surround myself with the best people, and to some degree better than me. So I have to say thank you. I'm going to cry because I cannot thank you two enough for what you do and how you do it. And I love you two very much. And all of you out there, there's nobody better. And I know every coach, and I don't care who's listening, but these two are bar none. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie.
Okay, that's it. We did this for an hour and a half. I owe you two big. So thank you for everyone. So just so you all hear, valuable lesson. Thank you so much. Great. Really needed this. Helpful. So again, thank you to you. And I never take this privilege lightly, that when people show up, because you had a million choices tonight. So I so appreciate you taking the time.